So, um, I want you to imagine a really normal scenario for a second. You walk into a cramped conference room on like a Tuesday afternoon, and a coworker has brought in a huge box of warm Domino's pizza.
Right, a classic office move.
Yeah, exactly. And for most of you sitting around that table, it's this really kind gesture. It's, a nice midday morale boost.
Sure.
But for some people in that exact same room, opening that cardboard box is, well, it's literally an environmental hazard.
Yeah, it completely upends what we think of as standard hospitality, because what looks like this welcoming, shared experience to one nervous system is interpreted as an immediate, unavoidable physical threat by another.
A physical threat.
Yeah.
And that invisible friction, that's exactly what we're unpacking in today's deep dive. We really want to kind of completely rewire how you think about picky eating, communal spaces, and what it actually means when a colleague quietly unpacks a Tupperware container instead of just grabbing a slice.
I love that we're getting into this.
Me too.
Mm.
And we're basing this entire deep dive on just a really eye-opening piece by Dr. Jaime Hoerricks. It's called Smell, Safety, and the Sensory Politics of Food.
Right.
And just for context, this is actually the 6th installment in her broader series, which is called The First Autistic Person.
It's such a brilliant series because her work really forces us to look closely at that intersection of sensory processing and social expectations. The big question we really need to keep in mind today is this. When we design a space and call it welcoming, whose bodies are we actually assuming will be in that room?
Oh, wow.
And by default, whose bodies are we quietly pushing out?
That is such a huge question. And to get to the bottom of that, we kind of have to start with the invisible architecture of these spaces.
Right.
And by that, I mean smell.
Yeah.
Because usually we just treat smell as background ambiance, like maybe someone is wearing strong perfume or there's lunch in the break room. But Dr. Hoerricks makes this critical distinction, right? She says smell isn't just an atmosphere, it is occupancy.
Occupancy. That word is just so precise. I mean, think about how our other senses operate within physical boundaries.
Okay, like how?
Well, if a room is too bright, you can just turn your chair. If a light bulb is glaring, you can literally point to the source and shade your eyes.
Oh, right, you can block it out.
Exactly. And sound is pretty similar. You can usually identify where a noise is coming from, measure your distance from it, or just step out into the hallway to escape a loudspeaker.
Yeah, but smell doesn't do that. It doesn't respect borders at all. It just expands and completely claims the territory.
Totally claims it.
Like a pizza isn't just sitting on the table. The scent of those fried seed oils, the garlic, the warm, cooling cardboard from Domino's.
Ugh, the cardboard smell is so specific.
Right. It clings to the upholstery. It gets into people's hair. It literally sinks into the carpet. The person who brought it in thinks they've just brought a snack, but they actually dragged an entire aggressive environment into a closed space.
And the physical reality of what happens when that environment hits an autistic nervous system is, it's profound. This isn't just a situation where someone says, oh, I dislike the aroma of garlic.
Right, it's deeper than that.
Much deeper. The physical reaction, this intense, visceral nausea, it arrives as an undeniable fact. And that happens before the brain can even attempt to process it socially.
Okay, let's actually dig into the why there. Because I think a lot of people, they assume everybody processes smell the exact same way.
Right, and that some people are just being dramatic.
Exactly. But neurologically, that's not what's happening at all. Like in a neurotypical brain, if you walk into a room smelling like pizza, your brain notices it for a second, and then this mechanism kicks in called sensory adaptation.
Which is super important.
Yeah, the brain basically says, okay, this smell isn't a fire, it isn't a threat. I'm just going to filter this out so I can focus on the Q3 budget spreadsheet.
Exactly. The neurotypical brain just drops the smell into the background. But in an autistic brain with sensory processing differences, that filtering mechanism operates entirely differently.
How so?
Well, the brain doesn't just adapt and ignore the smell. The olfactory bulb, which processes scent, sends signals straight to the amygdala.
Which is the brain's threat center.
Right, so the nervous system doesn't say, oh, pizza, how nice. It literally says, foreign substance invading the respiratory system, sound the alarm. The nausea isn't an opinion. It's a biological mandate to escape a toxic environment.
Okay, let me try to unpack this with an analogy. It's essentially like someone lighting a flare of thick, invisible, heavy smoke in a closed room.
Ooh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. And everyone else around the table is looking at it thinking, oh, what a lovely, cozy fireplace we have today.
Yeah.
But you are literally choking.
Yeah.
Her eyes are watering, your throat is closing up, and the wildest part is you are the absolute only one who feels it.
Yes.
You're looking around coughing, your coworkers are just happily taking notes.
That perfectly captures the profound isolation of the experience. I mean, the room has become completely uninhabitable to you without changing its physical shape at all.
Right, the chairs are the same.
The chairs are the same, the agenda is the same, but the air itself is hostile. And because no one else is choking on that smoke, they interpret your distress not as a physical crisis, but as a social failing.
Which is wild. If the physical response is that involuntary, like if your amygdala is literally screaming at you to flee before you can even form a polite sentence, why is our cultural reflex to label the person like fussy rather than just recognizing they're in physical distress?
Well, to be honest, recognizing the distress would require the group to change its behavior.
Oh, wow. That hits hard.
It does, right? It's just much easier for society to weaponize language to force compliance. Dr. Hoerricks identifies these as disciplinary words.
Disciplinary words.
Yeah. They arrive disguised as common sense, but they are absolutely designed to police behavior. Take the word fussy, like you mentioned. When society calls someone fussy, it immediately frames a biological reality as a character flaw.
Yeah, and if you're called picky, that totally reframes a survival mechanism as just a stubborn preference.
Exactly.
It implies you could eat it if you really wanted to. You're just choosing to be difficult.
It makes me think about all the other words we throw around in these situations. Like, we say someone is being rude if they won't share the meal, which turns it into an etiquette problem. Or we call them childish.
Which is perhaps the most insidious one of all.
Really? Why?
Because it suggests the person simply lacks the maturity to, grow up and eat their vegetables. This vocabulary creates an impossible trap for neurodivergent adults. As Dr. Hoerricks points out, the body does not negotiate with the word surely. Surely! Oh man, I see this happen all the time in office settings or like at family Thanksgiving dinners. A well-meaning relative or coworker pushes a plate toward you and says, surely one piece won't hurt, or surely you can just try a bite.
And they really think they are being encouraging.
They do.
But the nervous system doesn't process surely. It processes texture, heat, oil, mouthfeel, and aftertaste. The body doesn't care that the food was free, or that Aunt Linda spent 3 hours making it, or that refusing it breaks some unspoken social norm.
Okay, I want to play devil's advocate here for just a second and really push on this societal expectation.
Go for it.
Because I know some of you listening might be thinking this too. Isn't part of being a functioning adult just sort of navigating mild discomfort? Like if you go to a dinner party and the host serves a dry, terrible casserole, the unspoken social contract is that you take a few bites, smile, and swallow it down so you don't offend them.
Right.
Isn't that just basic social grace?
Well, if we were talking about culinary preferences, yes. But that comparison is exactly what the neurotypical world gets wrong here. Enduring a dry casserole is about politeness. What we are discussing today is a fundamental issue of accessibility.
Accessibility.
Yes, think about it like a wheelchair ramp, but for the sensory environment.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. If someone physically cannot walk up a flight of stairs to get into a building, we don't stand at the top and say they're being fussy.
No, of course not.
We don't tell them they lack manners for not climbing the steps. We instantly recognize the building lacks access.
Precisely. And we have to apply that exact same understanding to sensory environments. The stomach turns before manners can even be deployed.
Right.
The body says no before the person has the chance to perform graciousness. So when a workplace demands that an employee suck it up and sit in a room filled with a scent that triggers their threat response, they aren't asking for politeness.
No, they're not.
They are demanding that the person endures physical distress just to make the neurotypical majority feel comfortable about their own hospitality.
And the fallout from that demand is usually an incredible amount of hidden shame.
So much shame.
An adult who needs to bring their own safe food to a meeting often has to treat their lunch like it's contraband. You sit there defending your Tupperware, offering these little half-truths like, oh, I had a really big breakfast, or my stomach is just a little off today.
Yeah, the masking is exhausting.
Right. You lie because telling the truth that the smell of their generous pizza is currently rendering the room toxic to you, it sounds completely unhinged to people whose bodies let them eat socially without a second thought.
Which brings us to the other side of this whole dynamic. Because if we recognize that avoiding certain foods is about preventing a biological threat, We also have to understand what the body does want.
Yes, let's talk about that.
And from the outside, the foods that neurodivergent individuals seek out can look entirely contradictory.
This is the paradox of sensory seeking and safe foods, right?
Exactly.
On one hand, you have this profound rigidity that society just loves to mock, like someone eating the exact same brand of crackers for lunch every single day. But Dr. Hoerricks describes this kind of sameness not as immaturity, but as a door that opens reliably.
A door that opens reliably. It's beautiful.
It really is. A safe food isn't necessarily some culinary masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's a known outcome.
Yeah.
In a world where the sensory environment is constantly chaotic and unpredictable, a food that never changes its texture or flavor isn't boring. The repetition is literally a form of mercy.
It allows the act of eating to simply be eating rather than this high-stakes negotiation with potential sensory landmines.
Yeah.
But the paradox really emerges when we look at hyposensitivity.
Okay, break that down for us.
That's when the nervous system is actually under-registering input, and it needs extreme stimulation just to register it at all.
Right, this is where it gets really fascinating. Because you might have someone who gags at a faint, lingering room, smell like the cooling cardboard from earlier, but they simultaneously crave incredibly intense inputs.
Yeah.
We're talking foods with extreme crunch, heavy layers of salt, searing heat, or highly carbonated, aggressively fizzy drinks. At first glance, you'd think, wait, if this person's nervous system is so fragile and overly sensitive, why on earth are they drowning their food in hot sauce? Isn't that contradictory?
It seems contradictory until you stop treating all sensory input as being thrown into the exact same bucket.
Oh, interesting.
The body seeks those intense extremes because intensity provides highly usable information to the nervous system.
Okay, let's look at what usable information actually means mechanically. Take extreme crunch, for example.
Good one.
When you bite down on a thick kettle chip or a raw carrot, you are getting massive proprioceptive feedback.
Right.
A proprioception is basically your body's ability to sense its own position in space. So that heavy crunch sends a shock wave through the jaw, traveling straight to the brain, essentially announcing, here I am. This is where my jaw is. This is the solid boundary between my physical body and the outside world.
It's incredibly grounding.
It's basically an anchor.
It acts exactly as an anchor. Or consider intense heat from spicy food. Heat organizes attention.
Okay, how so?
Well, if you are sitting in a bustling open-plan office, you've got fluorescent lights buzzing, phones ringing, and multiple conversations overlapping, your nervous system might be totally overwhelmed trying to process all of it equally.
Like sensory overload.
Exactly. But biting into something fiercely spicy forces the nervous system to focus on one very clear, loud internal signal.
Oh, I get it. So it's like your brain has 80 different browser tabs open, all autoplaying different videos at the same time. And biting into something intensely spicy or crunchy is like hitting mute on everything else and maximizing one single tab.
Yeah.
Gives your brain one clear task to focus on.
That is exactly how it functions. And this is Dr. Hoerricks' exact distinction. An invading smell is completely different from a flavor that anchors you.
Wow.
One is an attack, the other is a lifeline. The nervous system isn't simply asking whether a sensory input exists. It is asking what that input does.
Right. Does this steady me? Does it surprise me?
Does it make me sick?
Does it demand a performance from me, or does it let me safely exist in my own body? Understanding the difference between an invading force and an anchoring force really profoundly changes how you look at what people put on their plates.
It really does. And once you grasp that mechanical reality, you kind of have to look outward and see how systematically our society fails to accommodate it.
Oh, for sure. Our culture has a very specific and often pretty cruel way of dealing with things it doesn't understand.
Yeah, it turns them into punchlines.
Exactly. Adult food rigidity is absolutely treated as an office joke.
Always.
The guy who eats the exact same turkey sandwich every single day is the butt of the joke. The woman who politely declines a slice of the celebratory birthday cake is seen as a killjoy who isn't a team player.
But what's really wild to me is that society will respect food restrictions if they fall under the umbrella of a recognized voluntary diet.
Yes, the double standard there is glaring. Right. If you are at that same party and you say, oh, I can't have the cake, I'm doing keto, or I'm intermittent fasting, the room collectively nods. They respect it. They might even applaud your discipline.
Oh.
But if you say, I can't eat that because the texture of the frosting will trigger my gag reflex, suddenly you are treated like a petulant toddler. The room respects a fad diet, but it refuses to respect sensory survival.
And behind that cultural comedy is profound devastation. I mean, we are talking about real people sitting at a table, genuinely hungry because the only food provided is physically impossible for them to consume.
Yeah.
Or they are trapped in a meeting by ambient food odors, fighting back nausea, completely unable to focus on the presentation they were supposed to be leading. They are effectively excluded from participating in their community simply because that community decided to build itself around a sensory event their body couldn't survive.
Which really forces us to realize that food is infrastructure.
Infrastructure, yes.
In most social spaces, we treat food as decorative. We treat it as an optional bonus to the main event. But it actively alters the physical environment. A staff meeting with a catered hot lunch is fundamentally not the same meeting as one with no food.
Not at all.
A classroom party with heavily frosted cupcakes and scented cleaning sprays is a totally different sensory landscape than a regular math lesson. These environments silently dictate who is allowed to participate fully and who is forced to retreat.
And it demands that we completely reevaluate our everyday definitions of hospitality. True hospitality cannot just be about the intention of the host. It has to be measured by the actual accessibility of this space.
So what does this all mean for you as you move through your week? The next time you're put in charge of ordering catering for a team offsite, or you notice a colleague eating those exact same crackers for the 4th day in a row, realize that food is not just nourishment.
Right.
It isn't just a fun icebreaker. As Dr. Hoerricks says, food is timing, memory, trust, and most importantly, access. We have to stop confusing someone's biological survival with fussiness.
I completely agree. And, what stands out to me and what I really want to leave you with is a thought that extends beyond just food and into how we design our entire society.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We've established that forcing communal food experiences can inadvertently but brutally exclude people. But let's take that a step further. Think about our modern workplaces and our schools. Over the last decade, they have increasingly been redesigned around mandatory shared sensory environments.
Oh, you mean the shift to open-plan offices, communal cafeterias, the glass-walled breakout rooms, all that stuff championed in the name of spontaneous collaboration.
Exactly. But if we apply today's deep dive to that modern architecture, we have to ask a really troubling question. By tearing down walls and forcing everyone to share the same smells, sounds, and visual chaos, are we actively filtering out some of our most brilliant, analytical, and creative minds? If their nervous systems refuse to compromise on safety, they simply cannot thrive in those spaces. It makes you wonder if our modern corporate obsession with forced togetherness is actually the ultimate barrier to true inclusion.
Are we designing spaces that require you to check your sensory safety at the door just to earn a paycheck?
Yeah.
That is a heavy, vital question, and it is absolutely going to stick with me.
It's a paradigm shift, for sure.
It really is. And hopefully it sticks with you, too. The next time you walk into a room and smell that fresh pizza, you might just notice the invisible smoke lingering in the air. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking closely and keep questioning the invisible environments around you.